So, guys, I want to do a tough video, and I do want to talk about like some of the stupid things that I've been told as a kid. And one of the stupid things that I've been told is that black people can't have salt because when it comes to African Americans, their blood saturates stuff a lot more. And I heard that from my parents, and one of the reasons why I say that was that when I was a kid, there was a rule in my house where I was not allowed to put salt on my food. Or I remember like how sometimes my brothers would actually would make a mistake really. So what my dad would do is that they would take away their dish and then they would exchange their food because my parents would never salt their food and other things like that. But it was also kind of like a little bit of a racist thing because that's not true about African Americans. Um, that's not true about African Americans. Um, I was just kind of say this that yes, in the black community, there is issues with high blood pressure, but it's not a genetic thing really, and it's not from okay, well blacks just have more sensitive blood systems than other races. That's actually not true. Um, if you want to know the true details, it's this really that obviously when you look at African Americans, they have higher blood pressure issues because obviously when you look at what black people have gone through, systematic racism, that a lot of times when black people were successful in history, like Black Wall Street, or a lot of black communities, they would get destroyed and everything like that. So you can imagine how that make a person have high blood pressure issues. There are things too when you're called a nigger, you deal with racial harassment, you have traumatic experiences around racism and other shit like that. Like I know I talked about, many times in college, I dealt with racism. Many times in filmmaking, I've dealt with racism. Many times in my family, I've dealt with racism. That I I would imagine that a person would have anger issues or high blood pressure of just recalling bad memories, really. And then also too that when you look at the black community, you look at like a lot of television shows. They always show like the movie Friday. They always show black people eating very badly. Like it's always soul food. It's always pork ribs. It's always fried chicken. It's always like soda. It's always smoking cigarettes. Um, and other things like that. So a lot of times in media, you would see black people eating poorly, and sometimes people emulate what they see really. And then the next thing is that you look at a lot of just that some black people struggle financially really, so some people can only afford high C, they can't afford water. You also look at how in many community you also too you look at like some dollar stores that would sell like maybe Dr. Bob or whatever. It's like a soda that's like 33 cents, but it's just pure sugar really. It's like a poor man's version of Dr. Pepper. The other issue is that and this is true in a lot of communities, but definitely the black community, education is not really valued. Like how many times have you watched videos of kids fooling around and horsing around in school and being disrespectful to teachers? Like you're not teaching them. They're not valuing conversations about nutrition and other things like that. Because education's disrespect for educators has kind of been like an American thing for like many years really, but it's definitely kind of picked up really. But also too that it's very true in many communities, education is not really as valued because I know like when I was a kid, if I ever said the word ain't, like I remember like one time I was playing video games and I said the word ain't, and my dad said, the word is not. And I said whatever. My dad got out of the shower and he was ready to smack me in the face really, because a lot of parents had that mentality back then. If your kid is not educated or they can't answer general questions or they don't know who this person in history is, you tell your kid, okay, no TV, no video games. You're going to um, grab a book and read about the thing that you don't know about. Because education was very valued. Education spoke to um, a child being educated really spoke about what your family was about. And if you have a kid saying ain't all the time, that was considered a bad thing really. But nowadays, people don't care about their children being educated as much. So your kids don't know anything about nutrition. They don't know about high fructose corn syrup. They don't know about sodium levels. They don't know about serving size. People just don't really care. And it's very very sad and unfortunate really. But those are all like main reasons why the black community there is a struggle with bad health really. or high blood pressure issues, but it's also in white communities as well. You look at how many times you watch videos of Honey Boo Boo and you see how her mom is fat and you see how she's fat, but it's like her mom is entitled, or there's this girl, I think her name is Alina or Aliana or whatever, and they do skits on like Instagram and other places where she's defying her mom really. There's many times, or you watch Nanny 911, and sometimes if there's little white girl or a little white boy and their parents say, okay, we're going to have like steamed vegetables tonight, they're gonna be yelling and screaming or throwing away their dish and going into the pantry and getting like Cocoa Puffs or whatever, really. So, like in the white community, there is an issue with bad health because there are some families want that look like those white trash fat Walmart families, and then there's also some families that let their kids do whatever they want, and then there's some families where you may have like a lot of times I watch My 600 Pound Life. A majority of the people there are white, and majority of them are either from childhood to where their parents let them eat whatever they want, or the parents said, okay, we bond by feeding my kid, really. So that's just not a black thing, really. That's in other communities as well of overindulgence or bad health, really. But also too, it's not really good when you grow like my parents are white, I'm mixed race really, but they consider me black. But it's not a good feeling when you grow up in a household where it's like, okay, because you're black, and I say, and I'm the adult, I'm the parent, and I say that you're black. Oh well, you can't have salt on your food because they know a lot about the health of black people when they don't really. And as I explained, it's not really there's no race that really struggles with that really struggles with like high blood pressure issues. Um, and that has nothing to do with the race of somebody. That more so has to do with cultural things. That more so has to do with culture, and then more so has to do with representation of culture. Because if, as I said, if you always see movies where black people are getting drunk, or you always see movies where black people are having bad diets and whatever, sometimes you gotta pull your kids aside and say, hey, you know what? That's kind of not a good thing that they're showing black people eating poorly because it tells people to imitate those stereotypes. Makes people impressionable to say, hey, that's what we got to do, really. You look at somebody like Jules from Everybody Hates Chris. There are men like that, and I would say even men like myself who are part black, or there's people like Jules from Everybody Hates Chris who are darker skinned than me. And what do you see Jules do? He works two jobs. He has three kids. He has a wife that's a ghetto snob. And in the '70s, when Everybody's Chris takes place, even though they said in the '80s that was the role of men, they went out and they worked, and the women sat home and spent their paycheck. And then you had women like Rochelle say, you know what, my man has two jobs. I don't need this, whatever. So um, there's also that reason too, where there's some men who are overworked. There are some men who may marry a partner that's narcissistic. The traditional role is that the man works and the woman spends the paycheck, really. So you look at how that would make a person have high blood pressure issues, or like how Rochelle famously said, "Oh well, you know what? I'm home taking care of your three kids. I need a vacation too. I need to relax too. I need a hammock. I need all that stuff. You don't need it. I need it because I'm always dealing with. I always get it worse than you." And that's completely like narcissism as well, really. But that's also very true. That not a lot of people even respect the black experience. I've dealt with a lot of racism, but whenever I talk about racism, whatever, even though and I even said it to the 40 Hour Film Project, wherever, whenever I talk about racism, whatever, a lot of people get quiet. A lot of white people just act like, what, it goes over their head, really, like the International Space Station. Could you imagine how that would make a person want to have high blood pressure? But in short, really, we should not. Um, yes, we want to encourage our children to have better health, but no, we shouldn't throw stereotypes into that. Because again, but my parents are like white, really, so I shouldn't say something like, "Oh well, since my parents are white, they need to wear extra sun cream because white people have issues with sunlight." Or my dad's Italian, or I should say something like, you know what, you need to watch your health because obviously when you watch The Sopranos, they're eating like unhealthy Italian food all the time. Or my other father is German, and both my parents drink a beer daily. So should I be like, okay, you know what, because you're German, oh well, you shouldn't be drinking beer. You know, you need to go to Alcohol Anonymous or whatever. Or my mother, I believe my grandmother. I think one of my grandmothers was French. Grandma Madeline, if I'm correct. You know, so should I say something like, "Oh, well, we need to kind of not give her sweets before she died. Should not give her sweets or anything like that," because obviously French people love confectionaries. Or I have another grandmother, Grandma Carol, and I think she's Irish and Italian. But should I say the exact same thing? You know, we got to make sure you're not drinking that wine because Irish people have issues with drinking. Oh well, that's why you're fat, Grandma Carol, because you're Italian and you eat so much. You because we really wouldn't like it. We associated the stereotypes of nationalities, or ethnicities or races or religious backgrounds, and be like, okay, we need to do these, we need to go on this type of health plan or whatever. You can easily say something like, you know what, I don't want anybody having salt on their food in this house because that's unhealthy. That's all you need to do. You don't need to bring the race thing or whatever. Not like you're black, you can't have it. You can't have it because you're black. You can't have it because you're black. You can't have it because black people's blood saturates more um, because as I said, it's unfortunate, but some people still have believe in the racial sciences. But that's not true. Black people having black skin is not the reason why high blood pressure is an issue in the black community. It's for other factors. But yeah, encouraging good health is good. But just to say, oh well, black people naturally just have bad health and they need to be always monitoring their health. That's all just inaccurate bullshit. Um, because it's almost like saying black people are almost like a breed of dogs. Because certain breeds of dogs have certain health issues. Because of genetics, really. But black people don't have certain health issues because of genetics, in my opinion, or for what I know, really. And none of that is if you procreate with a black woman, um, and then or if you procreate with someone who's black, your children are going to be genetically predisposed to high blood pressure issues because they're black. No, that's not true, unless it runs in somebody's genetics. But that's more of a genetic thing than actually a racial genetic type of thing.